This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are listening, watching. Here, the most important thing, I say this every episode, hit subscribe. Yes, I do say that every single time. It's not like a pre-recorded message. It's like, hit subscribe. I remind you. So whether you're watching this on iTunes or on YouTube, or it might be that you're enjoying it on Spotify or in the Mile High app, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. And you also want to make sure you are dialed in to be at Mile High Live in September 25th weekend, 2025. Oh my God, it's Mile High 13. Look, don't let the 13 scare you, right? You won't be chased by Jason while you're there, okay, from Friday the 13th, but you want to be there because you'll be surrounded by love, passion, energy for chiropractic. And that being said, I am so grateful to have this guest. She's one of my favorite people on the planet. Carrie Mancuso, we're long-term friends, and she's been training teams for a while, live at Mile High in the team breakout sessions. I have to tell you, you have to bring your teams, because anytime your team can learn from Carrie Mancuso, they are learning. She also helps mentor teams in lifetime wellness practice. She co-coordinates the team inner circle with Amanda Preston, and she mentors teams one-on-one. She, we'll get her Shanghai story, but she was Shanghai into the chiropractic profession by her husband-to-be in 2009, and she's learned a lot being an intrinsic care chiropractic and as an SRI wellness educator. And she's going to be unexpectedly or maybe expectedly moving to France in just a little bit. So I'm sure we're going to learn about her journeys there. But she's really had incredible hands-on experience running a chiropractic office and guiding team members to success and the offices that those team members work in to be successful. She has exceptional skills from delegation and implementation and really helping individuals uplift their mindset from, a job to being someone who coordinates and values the purpose and that they're giving to an office. So thank you for joining us today, Carrie Mancuso.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It's my first time on the Mile High podcast, and I'm super grateful that you asked me to come and share with you today.
We're excited to have you here. And I have to say, a very important thing, I got a Mile High shirt on. I always wear that when I do the podcast. One variation, there's a couple of them for different years. But this time I had to make sure I had a Mile High coffee cup. All right, there you go. And I want to say, Carrie, what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking a cortado. That is a little espresso with a little dollop of milk.
Good. Well, I have a latte, but I have it in a Mile High cup, and I decided I was going to drink from a Rochelle Mile High cup. I figured that would be the way to go.
You know what? I should have got mine out, but I think they are all packed. So I did get the ones from this year.
Oh.
And already, and I was like, what is in the mail? And I knew as soon as I saw, I cut the little styrofoam, and I was like, Mile High cups.
There you go. So first of all, let's talk about your Shanghai experience. So how'd you find your way into not just the chiropractic world, but also running an office or co-running an office?
So when I met Matthew in Seattle and we started dating, I was actually farming at the time.
Oh.
And it was November, and November 2008. And he needed help in the office. So I was like, oh yeah, I can run an office, which is hilarious because I have never had those skill sets, but those things don't stop me. I'm typically like,
not having skill sets doesn't stop you.
right. Not having the skill set does not stop me. I will just do it.
I got to pause you there because that's probably true for many chiropractic team members. Because I think very few team members are actually hired with the skill sets that have to do with an office.
Yeah, it's true. And what I think, yes, and that can be a really great thing.
Yeah.
But and what started to happen was people would come in and, I really started to learn, like, I mean, I feel like in the beginning, we failed miserably. And
not the only ones that's happened to, just so you know.
No, and I don't, not that I like would want to have that experience again, but it really gave me leverage to do it right, or not right, but it would like forced me to go, what do we really need to do? I think a lot of, and so we were running the office in Seattle and we totally bombed it. And my dad was really sick at the time in Ohio. And that's when we ended up moving. Mm-hmm. And we moved back to Ohio and we started a practice. And because we did so poorly in Seattle, we were like, we'll do whatever it takes. And that was, I feel like, when the real, when the rubber met the road and the traction happened. And that's also when we found you. And that's when we found Lifetime Wellness Practice and Mile High. And Matthew's always been a part of the network community. And I think one of the biggest differences of making sure we're in, like, not just the philosophical circles, but also the places where people look at business and go, we can actually move this forward. And we were coaching with a lot of people that were talking about mindset. And if anybody knows Matthew and anybody knows me, like, it doesn't take much to shift our mindset. We're like all in, we're mission driven, we're ready to go. And we needed somebody to just to tell us what to do. Just tell me, we'll do it. Just tell us what to do, right? Like, here's the script. This is what you need to say. Like, this is the outcome that we want. Now, how do we get there? And so that is, I feel like that's when the learning really began. And we started to put systems and operations into place, and it allowed us a ton of freedom. And we were really able to focus on people. Mm-hmm. And focus on outcomes and focus on how, we can serve people, help them make healthier choices, help them be better, and not worry so much about the business part. And that was really when everything just started to click and move forward. And, and since then we've sold our business. And, we're going to go to another country and do the same thing all over again. And this time with way more skill sets, and way more confidence and way more wisdom and experience. And do we still have a lot to learn? Yes. And it's pretty exciting.
And I got to ask, you use the word outcomes. In that first practice that did not do well, I'm guessing that maybe at that point in your development, there may not have been a lot of focus on outcomes.
Yes. And I think, I don't think it was the primary driver or something that was like put on the bulletin to say, listen, this is possible.
Right.
Right. And to say, and like, yeah, is it gonna take work to get there? Absolutely. But like, when you don't know where you're going and you don't have a roadmap and no one teaches you what that possibility looks like, you don't even know you can be on target. If that makes sense, right?
You mean the target's more than like having some tables and that you can adjust people?
Yes.
But there was a point where you didn't know that. But there's a point where most chiropractors don't know that.
Yeah, and it's mind-boggling to me now because it's hard. It's honestly, Danny, it's hard for me to remember. Like, I can remember certain parts of the emotions and part of the experience of that, but it's really hard for me to remember when I didn't know.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, it totally does. And me as well. And then there's a place of like getting that and then also bringing a team into outcomes and procedures and structure, and inspiring them to be part of your vision, which is a whole art. It's not like a switch that you click, that there's a process to that. So, and when you start, the rubber met the road, and you started to say, hey, we're moving a direction towards business outcomes for the patients, and so on. What were some things that were like pivotal that were different or that you implemented in your office?
Stats were one of the first things that we did. And that was like, hey, here's your map. This is where you are. Like, here's your reality. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important because I think a lot of people don't want to look at numbers and don't want to look at brass tacks because it's like doing regular exams. It shows you where, it gives you a sense of how good your care is.
Right.
Your stats give you a sense of how good your business is doing. And if you ignore it, you can pretend.
Right.
Right. And and I think one of the beauties of working with Matthew and working with the community that we do work with is that he's always like, how do we become better? Mm-hmm. Right? Whether that's in a business or that's taking care of someone. And those stats, when you look like how many new people are coming in, I can look at your stats. I could probably look at anybody's stats now and tell you where your biggest gap is in the first like 7 to 10 seconds.
Right.
Because I have done it so often. I'm like, oh, this is a day one problem, or this is an education problem, or, hey, like, what's happening between here and here? Are you really doing any outreach? And I think that's one of the most important things to do. It's like, it's your biological energy. It's like, where are we really at? So we know, like, I'm here on the map and this is where we're going.
Right.
And then I think what was this? There was another thing in my mind where I was like, oh yeah, there was another thing that's like, what really moved the needle? I can't remember it. I'm sure it'll pop up for me.
But having a guide to the map rather than, just going randomly in whatever direction seems to be exciting that day makes a huge difference. And guess what? That happens in a lot of things in that life, not just chiropractic offices.
Yes.
Right. So then, stats you said was one of the main things, actually looking at data, which is like, oh, wait a second. You mean I don't just adjust people and lie down? No, this is not a hobby. It's a business. Right.
Yes.
So then what happens when, on top of that, now you bring in team? Like, I'll tell you about a decade of assisting chiropractors with their offices, there's two things I find they struggle with. Like, I hear lots of things, but the two areas that tend to be the pain points or most challenges: marketing, I got to get new patients, which is just a bad sentence, but people say I got to get new patients. And then the second thing is team, headaches around a team. So, and you need your team because you're not going to go too far without a team. Okay. You're only going to get so far. So with a team, what were the things that were like, oh, this is a whole nother dimension?
Oh yeah. I mean, that like thinking about our first hire, I just cringe at myself because I'm like, oh my, I remember it. I remember like how badly we hired. The person was just not a good fit. And then over time you get better at it. And I think one of the biggest things is hiring up. Really looking at, and it's one of the things you've said over and over, can you see them in all the positions? Can you see them managing the office? Can you see them having consultations with people? What's the level of maturity in that person? Even if they don't, they're going to be cross-trained, but how do they, can you see them showing up in all the roles, being an adult? Like, that's a great question to ask yourself when you're hiring somebody. Mm-hmm. And I think on the flip side of that, and I like post our last program, it was one of the things I really saw a lot in I think sometimes once people hire someone, they kind of start to get hands off.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge mistake. And
You're
I think
not supposed to just let them go and do whatever they want. That's not what they do.
because, right, like it's like you want people, like we're in a new era of employment. And I think post COVID, there was a lot of friction. And I still to this day think there is. You know, oh, I need a job and I need to be treated this way. And it's like, oh, I've hired you and you should do this. Well, I think there's a middle ground to that. And I also, right, like
I love what you're saying because chiropractors bar, what I've observed, and I'm guilty of this. I was probably guilty of this for at least 5 years, was I just need someone to ask for money and answer the phone. And like you just throw them at the desk. And
can you just do what I tell you to do?
And just do what I tell you to do and ask people for money. And that's it. Like that's the bar. If I think that, and that's hiring down tends to be the standard in a lot of professions. It's part of why so many offices don't do as well as they could do. I don't want to say fail, but don't do as well as they could do. So, you have to, as you said, hire up, right? So then what happens next?
You got to train them.
Really?
Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. Like, I win, right? Like you've got to have a system for training and you have to teach someone how to answer the phone. I always think of it like, imagine like you've got two team members.
And they don't answer it the way they do at home.
Right. Or they all answer it a different way. You know what I mean? Like it's right. Or they answer the questions a different way. And I don't think people realize like people will do what they want unless you tell them and then unless you're on it. Mm-hmm. And I think because especially as soon as you kind of go hands off and you haven't set a tone or a vision or the kind of the quest that you're on and enrolling them in that vision, they are not going to care. And I think that it's like, no, you set a precedent for like, this is what we're doing here. Here's our outcomes beyond numbers and statistics. Like, when I talk to teams and I'm doing team training, if I'm ever talking about money, I'm always like, listen, I don't want you to think that I'm just greedy.
Right.
I need you to know under all of this, if we saw these results without people getting well, I would feel completely empty. I would feel like a fraud. Right. So let's just assume that the standard for health, like for caring for people and getting the results that they came for is already here. And now we can put the money on top of that. That's like icing on the cake. And we need to make money. We're a business, right? It's an exchange. So I think having docs really knowing what their vision and mission is and enrolling their team in that. And once you get a team on board, like having scripts, having regular training time. And I know it sounds like a lot. That's why you hire people, right? You can hire people to train your team. You need regular coaching. I mean, Matthew coached with you and Rochelle up until the last week we sold our practice because it matters. You need someone in your corner leveraging you every step of the way in your team. It's like, so scripting, how you answer the phone, enrolling your team in a vision, making sure they understand the process. It's like you hire someone who's never been to a chiropractic office. That's great because you get to set the tone for that. You get to set the standard for that. Like this is how we operate. Oh my gosh, you do regular exams. I didn't know chiropractors did that. Right? Like
you do that all the time.
Right. Or you get someone who has been to a chiropractor before and they're like, I've never had an exam. This is a whole different world. So when you hire someone who's never worked in a chiropractic office, you set that standard and you have an opportunity to show them and have them have the experience of something beyond extraordinary. Right. And that's the opportunity you have. And they all actually have an opportunity to enroll in that. And when they know those outcomes and they see the difference in the people that you're taking care of, they're going to be enrolled to like, how do I answer the phone? Like today I was working with a team and they've got 2 new people. I think they've been there 2 and 3 weeks. And the one girl was like, tell me more about care conversations. I was like, such a great question, right? Like, I'm so glad that you're thinking in those terms of like, how do I talk to people about care? And so you want your team to be thinking that, not just, hey, what'd you do with your boyfriend this weekend? You've got to teach them how the culture that you want to create. And to me, that's the most exciting thing.
I was reading something about management and businesses and teams. And this particular thing was talking about how you communicate to your team how you're going to help them get there. You want to help them get to being successful and communicate to them, hey, we've got you and we're going to help you get to where you need to be. People want to be inspired and have fulfillment in their jobs. Otherwise, they're just clocking in, and it's not like they're at the French fry station. Like they want to be doing more and have fulfillment and work that's meaningful, so that they get up in the morning, they're excited to be there.
Yes.
And to do that, they have to know what it means to win. If they don't know what it means to be successful, they don't have a mark, they don't have something to shoot for. Right? So they don't necessarily get the pride in their position that they're so grateful they work at ABC Chiropractic office and glad to tell people about it. But you have to guide them that, hey, this is what winning looks like.
And pay them more when they do well, when you do well.
Yes.
Right? Like have a bonus system and reward them and make sure that, you include them, like Mile High, like chiropractic programs, making sure that they're trained. Like those are the things that they value. And I think the other thing, and it's something, it's one of those things, it's like, oh, I'm just a front office assistant. I'm like, you are 80% of the interaction of the office. Right?
They interact more so than the doctor.
Yes. And so you've got to teach them, because that is part, it's like I could get great chiropractic care all day, but if your front office is not interested, it's going to change my experience of you. Right. I might feel better, but I'm not going to be curious or want to know more because I don't want to spend time there.
Right.
And that's a big deal. And I think that, one of the things too I learned from Matthew, and we were poor. We were so poor. And he would just spend the money. And I would be like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? He was like, it doesn't matter. We're going to do this. We're going to spend the $3,000 and we're going to go to this program and we're going to do it because it's going to up level us. And I would just be like, oh my God, like we have nothing. And we would do it, and then miraculously the next level would happen, right? Not because we didn't work. It wasn't a miracle. It's like where God and the universe and you meet, right? It's like you put the energy out there. And I think that was one of my biggest lessons too. He's like, Carrie, just spend the money. Just spend the money. Spend the money, do the thing, implement. And we're both implementers. We will implement. We'll do the thing. But you've got to spend the money to make the money. Mm-hmm. And you have to value those pieces in order to, like, if you want to, not every $25 an hour employee is going to be worth it. Right. However, it is also your job to make sure you did the pieces to make sure that they were worth it. Right. And that is the hard part, because you're adjusting, right? If it's you and another team member, you're wearing all the hats. Right. And so it's finding a way to be strategic and finding a way to implement and create structure and make sure that you know where that person is. And like you said, Danny, making sure that they know how to become successful. I mean, it's like I've watched your team and it's so exciting to see Amanda and Trina and Chelsea. And I'm like, they're brilliant and they're doing it. And nobody's perfect, but they get back on track. Right. And everybody doesn't. You also saw, because you've seen us have other teams, you saw them grow from where they were to where they are now.
right? And that doesn't happen without mentoring them and giving them guidance. And like all of a sudden, bam, they're superstars. It comes from you. You know what? Actually, before we say more, I want to ask you some important tips that you said these are the things that really made a difference in training teams when you work with teams, what you do. Before we go down that road, Mile High. You come to Mile High as an attendee and now also training teams during the team sessions. We talked about why it's important to bring your team.
Mhm.
What do you love about as a team member yourself, right? Because I mean, yes, you're a co-owner of the business, but you're not a chiropractor. What do you enjoy being there as a lay person, as a non-chiropractor, and also as a team member?
Like I said, the people, but what I really love learning about chiropractic. Sometimes to me, like the human body and what happens in the research, and when we like, sometimes I'm like, it's mind blowing, right? Like how how the brain and the nervous system and the cells function, and what happens when we get adjusted, and that stuff to me is a lot of times first and foremost. And as a team member hearing that, and I can take that back to practice members, and that is the stuff that's I don't know, I just like it. It's the stuff that I geek out on. Like when people are like, when we talk about neuropeptides and mirror neurons, and I'm like, did you know when you get adjusted and this is happening and how your nervous system is functioning? Like when your spinal cord is in defense and in flexion, this is, and that's the stuff I've learned over the years.
And isn't it neat for you to see teams be there and have them grow and like they have more purpose?
Yeah, because they start to get it.
Right.
And they may not get it like a doc, but they're becoming advocates. They're becoming more knowledgeable. They're becoming stewards of the work. And that is, as much as I do other thing, like I still get juiced, training teams and talking about chiropractic, because I don't know what I would do without chiropractic care. I like when people are like, I'm discontinuing care. I'm like, how? What's happening? Like, what did we miss? And, those are those questions that I like to fill the gaps in. And going to Mile High is one of those places where I'm like, this is where I learn. This is where the people who come there are not just looking for that, but also expressing that and want to bring new perspective to that.
So I want to ask you about your top tips that you've helped people with, but a lot of people don't know that you do help chiropractors. So you are one of the CA mentors, team mentors for Lifetime Wellness Practice. And also you run co-run with Amanda Preston, the Team Inner Circle. Can you tell people a little bit about those two things?
The team inner circle is what I love about that is it's the teams from around the country that are part of the LWP Team Inner Circle, and they meet with Amanda and I twice a month. And sometimes it's both of us, sometimes it's one of us. We've been excited to do them together recently because we are super energized together, and Amanda and I work really great together, and we have different skill sets, and we have different things to offer, and we're really good at, we're just good together. It's so good. We're such a good team, but we train your team, and it's a no-brainer. I don't even know the cost of it, but I'm like, you get 2 hours a month with us talking about all the things training teams, and we answer questions. We have topics. We go over, scripting, what to say, promotions, marketing, all of the above for your team. And that is, I think we'll go over our calendar at the end of the year to make sure next year we're succinct, but it's on a Zoom call. We get to see your faces. We get to hear what challenges teams have. The beauty of that too is they can come to us when they feel like they can't come to you as a doc. and help them negotiate that so they can go back, have better conversations, optimize their position in the office, really, so they can, be with the practice members, be with the practice, see things in a different perspective, and, take, what we might consider negative communication and bring a positive light on it, and be able to do their jobs more effectively with more joy. That's Team Inner Circle, and it's really fun.
I mean, there's more than just answering the phone and asking for money.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just want to clear that up for people because I've said it a couple times intentionally because people, my impression is that doctors of chiropractic across the profession, and there's probably 5 or 10% of the profession that don't do this. The rest downplay the role of the CA instead of uplift it. And they would do much better if that 80% of the profession, 90% of the profession got it, that you have to uplift and make this like the best job position that you can have, right? So now training teams. All right, what are some top things of successful teams that you notice? These are the things that the teams that are on it do these things.
They learn how to take a first telephone call and schedule someone for a day one and do it well and do it correctly and do it with all the paperwork and a callback number. It sounds really elementary, but they need to answer the phone well. They need to have good communication skills. They need to know scripting. They need to know from the first visit all the way to the last visit of a package. What are we doing? How are we getting a person from A to Z with the outcomes they came in for? I could go on and on. That's a tough one, Danny, because there's so many little things, but if you can get someone on the phone call to get someone in the door, to see your office is different, to set a higher standard for the bar of chiropractic, and to let someone know that you can help them, you're already winning. Right. And also the one thing too about CAs is they can make or break an office. Oh, they can. Yeah. And you've seen it. We've both seen it in our offices where you're like, what is happening? And it's like, oh, this is happening. These are also the people. Real fast. Real fast. Mm-hmm. And also they can be the ones that help set the standard for chiropractic care and help people become lifetime wellness practice members. Right. And that's, and it's first telephone call. It's how they ask for money. It's making sure that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. What does that look like in your office? Right? Are you, it's like it's one of the things I say, are you answering the phone to answering the phone, or are you answering the phone to save a life? Mm-hmm. And that's two different intentions. If I'm just answering the phone to answer, and I've said to people, if I answer the phone and someone's like, I just want to get adjusted today, I'm like, you know what? Let me ask you some questions. And if we still determine they're not a good fit, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find somebody that's a good fit for them. Because I said, when they called me, I can help you. Mm-hmm. And if it's not in my office, you know what? We can still be friends. Let me find someone who's going to take care of you. And if you don't find what you're looking for, our door's always open. Mm-hmm. And if you can have that kind of mentality and you can train someone to be that gracious and to actually be in mind of service, you're going to convert way more people to care. They're going to at least come in your office. And at that point, that's on the dock. Yep. So I think that the most important things is always bring your team, Danny, right? Always bring your team. I hear that. And I think here's the other thing. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to bring my team because it might scare them off. Good riddance. Make sure that they are on board because you want to be right for them and they want to be right for you. If you're not a good fit for each other, we're not on the same playing field. It's not fair to anyone. It's not fair for somebody to stay because they want to help. And it's not fair for you to keep them if you think that they're not ready for the full on you, right?
Right.
or the full-on idea of chiropractic. Like that's not
Right.
serving anyone.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, this is, if people want to get in touch with you for mentoring, we'll just say this right now, go to lifetimewellnesspractice.com. All right, and there's a team text section, and there's a team inner circle which you can roll with, and there's also mentoring one-to-one. But you can book a call with them to talk about, hey, this is what's going on in our team, and just talk about some team problems and see if if it's a fit to help, or just maybe get good advice to put you in a first direction, for a few minutes. We'd
Absolutely.
not lose people on the phone, before they're getting in, because again, that equates where a team member is not, doing things as well to their good and look as well as they're possible. And every team member, they're not going to be rock stars right away. They're going to grow. But when they're not doing as well as they could, it's lives that are on the line. It's not just your bottom line of your office. It's also lives that are on the line. And you want team members that know that lives are on the line, that they're gatekeepers to that office in terms of people being able to receive care. No one's going to get adjusted if you don't. People are not receive their first chiropractic adjustment, not because of the doctor, but because of the CA. So people have to know that, and they have to have not just I'm a chiropractic assistant, but they're a chiropractic paraprofessional, right? And they're a paraprofessional supporting that office.
And one of the things is you have to teach them that lives are on the line. They don't know that gap. Like when you adjust a baby, like, you've seen it. You've seen all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But like baby went from gray to color, like you can't, like that's the moment, right? Like it's looking at people's exams, showing them those results, letting them see what's possible, sharing those celebrations with them so they can see it. Like, and when they start care, they're going to have the same experiences.
Right.
But that's part of that culture that you build it so they are enrolled.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, really great for you to take the time to be on this Mile High podcast. I know you are juggling a ton of things, and we're wishing you all wellness, all great things moving to France. And we know you're going to contribute to Chiropractic Lives now on 2 continents. So that's, to lives through chiropractic on 2 continents. So that's kind of exciting. Very exciting. And, we look forward to seeing you at Mile High again. And again, if people want to learn more about getting your team help, definitely reply with the information that will be along with this podcast. And Carrie, thank you for your contributions to chiropractic.
Thank you so much for having me, Danny.
You're welcome. And keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic. Mark your calendar to be at Mile High in September 2025, Mile High 13. And also hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick.
And always bring your team.
Oh, yeah, that too.